Received a request to rename Chicago Avenue to Clover Creek Drive. Is there anybody that is worried about that? Chicago Avenue to Clover Creek Drive. I know that. It must be an extension of it. Okay, I didn't think that anybody'd be worried about that.
There's a gentleman back here who's worried about it.
You live on Chicago Avenue? Okay. Our program tonight is about A.J. Russell, and I wanted to kind of start out tonight. This little book, did I lose it? This little book here is a, if I can read it, Dead Reckoning Altitude and Azimuth Table. The thing that's significant about this, oh, I'm pushing the button. This little book is dated 1/4/36, and in the title here it's Lieutenant J.G. R.S. Russell, USN, VB-5G, USS Lexington. Admiral Russell was on the USS Lexington, and this was one of the books that came from his estate. This is on display in my museum. Tonight's program is about A.J. Russell, and Peggy Ball here is his granddaughter, and she'll continue here with the program for tonight.
Can everybody see? Can you see it through me? I'm going to sit down, so you can move if you want. Okay, well, we'll see how this works.
How about lights?
Just put this on my jacket.
If the lights, Mike.
Can anybody hear me with this? Oh, probably my hearing aids. Oh, gosh.
That's fine.
Can I be heard through this microphone?
Everybody here? You can turn it up a little bit. I'll turn it up.
Okay.
You don't want to move it.
Oh, okay.
I can turn it up a little. Okay, Peggy, try it.
Oh, I'm talking. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Good. Yeah, don't get it too high. It'll clash with my hearing aids. There we go. Okay, lights. Oh, I better turn it on. There. This is A.J. Russell. He was born in 1857 in India. The reason that happened was that his father was a missionary from Scotland. His mother was Australian. And at the age of 5, his mother died in childbirth, but the little sister lived. And A.J. brought his 2 children back to Scotland. On the way back, the only memorable thing that happened was there was a man wearing a turban on the ship, and little Ambrose unwound his turban, and the man thought it was just as funny as everybody else did, so he went along with the game, and the turban was flying, and that's the only memorable thing that he could remember from that trip. This is the medal that he won at the University of Glasgow for his architecture. And he also received a scholarship to the École des Beaux-Arts in Paris, the School of Fine Arts, where they have artists from different genres, like sculpture and other kinds of artistic students. It was a wonderful education. He was always kind of a formal sort of person, and in Europe he broadened his horizons and did a lot of traveling and did a lot of drawing. And we have the drawings and we have his paintings, some of them. And he really, I think, is just as good a painter as he is an architect. He was an architect. Here he is with his classmates, Glasgow. He's the one on the right in the front row, a young man. When he was in at the University of Glasgow, he did a lot of doodling, and he was writing to his cousin, and we have the letters, and on quite a few of the letters, he has his cartoons, if you want to call them cartoons. And that is, of course, St. George and the Dragon. And he also drew some skulls on the floor and a spider on the wall. And there's another face in there that I didn't notice before. But they're all kind of funny and pointing fun at people. This is one of his drawings, a pen and ink drawing of trees. You don't see that? This is a painting of a boat on the Thames, and they call it a lugger. I'm not quite sure what that was, but it shows the color work that he did. He painted in watercolors, and I'm astonished at the fine painting that he did with watercolor. Nothing seems smudged, and this is another watercolor of, this is the headwaters of the Rhine River in Switzerland. This is the Roman aqueduct at Segovia, Spain. And I'm not sure if it's still standing, but it's a beautiful piece of work, and you can see the fine detail that he did in the doorways and the horses' feet, and I have that one at home in my house. It really is pretty. And that's my grandmother, Lola Sargent Russell. She lived in Kansas City, and AJ, after he finished his school at the Beaux-Arts, he came with his roommates. They were both from America. One was an architect and one was a sculptor. And they were fast friends all their lives, and they married first, and they introduced him to Lola. His wives knew Lola, and so they introduced him to her. And she was a remarkable person in her own right. During I think it was probably around 1925, she became an insurance agent and sold insurance, and she bought houses and rented them. And I think when she bought the 5th house, my grandfather said, "Mrs. Russell, you're going to land us in the poorhouse." He called her Mrs. Russell. She called him Bozzie, short for Ambrose. But in front of the children anyway, he always called her Mrs. Russell. That's my mother, Margaret McDonald Russell, Mace. This is taken at the University of Oregon. And on the right there is Admiral Jim Russell at Annapolis, a plebe, I believe. And he's standing with, let's see, his roommate is from Holland. That's the other man, Jay Breland. Now, although he did some really outstanding works of architecture in the North End, this was rather a modest house, and this is their home. It was on North 4th and M, quite near Division. And it's still there, and the woman who owns it is restoring it. It has a very unusual fireplace upstairs in the bedroom. She told me it was an Italian fireplace. It was made of something white. I couldn't tell what the material was. It wasn't brick. it had an opening that was an arch and tile all along the front, the hearth. It was small, and she said that when they put a fire in there, it heats the whole house. It's a very efficient fireplace. It's still there, and that's where my mother was born. And then 3 years later, my uncle was born in another one of his houses, but this isn't it. I don't have a picture of the house he was born in. But they called that the log cabin. I think it was partially logs. And this is the F.H. Murray home, and it was built in 1911. It's at the corner of Division and Sheridan. Murray was a lawyer and president of the Bar Association. The home has some notoriety because it was the home of the boy soprano, Robert Murray, who at the age of 12 could sing notes higher than the highest note on the piano. But unfortunately, he grew older and lost all his talent. Okay. This is probably the most beautiful of his houses, I think. This is the Bath house, B-A-E-T-H, but it's pronounced Bath. And Richard Bath was a Tacoma jeweler. This house was built in 1896. Russell came in 1892 at the urging of his brother-in-law, his wife's brother, who was out here. And he wrote and said, Tacoma is a booming town. You've got to come out here and design some houses. But when he got out here, there was a panic, 1893. And he only had one job the first year. He did work for the Cottage Home Building Association, and he was head of the architecture department, but he only did one house on his own that year. Tacoma was really growing. In 1880, there were 1,098 people. 1880. And then by 1892, when he came out here, there were 40,000 and some. It was a 34 times increase during that 10 years. And that's when all the homes of this type and this era were built. This home is interesting because it has two windows in the chimney. Do you see them? There's actually a staircase that goes behind the chimney. And, inside, the wallpaper, I saw the house about, 6 years ago now, and it still has the original wallpaper from 1896. It has a theme. I'm not quite sure if I can remember what the theme is, but it runs through the stained glass window and the staircase and the wallpaper. It always follows the same theme. I think it's something like a shield or something like that. Anyway, this house was falling into disrepair, and the neighbors all wanted to have it torn down. Can you imagine that? I guess it must have looked pretty bad. So a lady from California bought it. She and her husband bought that for their summer home. And when she got up here, she painted it, and that's why it looks so nice in this picture. But she said it's not a very comfortable house to live in because it takes 2 hours to heat the house. And on the 3rd floor, there's a ballroom, which turned into a ballet studio, and then into a basketball court, depending on who was living there. But it's on the corner of 5th and E, North 5th and E. It's very near Stadium High School, and so you might want to take a look at that. It was in the tour of homes. About 5 years ago, they had a tour of Russell homes, and this was one of them. This is one of his paintings. I believe this is the Cathedral at Chartres in France.